Hello everyone and welcome to an episode of Cinnamon Stitches. I am your yarn host Jennifer, and today we're doing a tutorial for this super cute, beautiful little short sleeved granny sweater. It is really easy to make. If you think you can't make garments, you can make this sweater. This is a 3X. I show you how to make the 3X in the tutorial, but I also tell you how to make it in any size, from small child size all the way up to as big as you need to make it. I show you how to make that. For this, we are using, grab it, the Puzzle Cotton yarn from Premier Yarns. And I used I used 3 1/4 balls of the Puzzle Cotton for this size, but also you can adjust how long you make it. You can adjust the sleeves and stuff, and I didn't weave in the ends, but we're gonna pretend we don't notice that. The tutorial is really easy. To make it, you need, for 3X and up, 4 balls of the Puzzle Cotton. The Puzzle Cotton, I am going to tell you, the washing instructions are hand wash, cold, lay flat to dry, because it has the cotton in it and the cotton is kind of fiddly. But you do not have to use the cotton. I love the cotton. I have no problem with washing this by hand if I need to. And unless it smells really sweaty or odoriferous, you can hand wash it if you spill on it, and just give it like a little fresher spritz of Febreze so that you don't have to hand wash it frequently. You don't need to, when you make garments like this, you don't need to wash them every time you wear them, unless you're really sweaty or, you know, you have body odor issues, which happens because of chemicals in people's bodies and all that. But if you choose not to use the cotton, you can also use the regular Premier Puzzle as an alternative, and it will work out just fine. I actually have a lot of these that I keep dropping on the floor. So you can still get a pastel-y look, or you can still get this look from Puzzle, because Puzzle has a wide variety of colors. I know that I have a Puzzle in a darker color. Yes, I do. So if you don't want to use the Puzzle Cotton, you can, you can use the acrylic. This is machine washable. Either of these will work for this tutorial pattern. The link for these yarns are below. That does help support the channel. It's an affiliate link. If you decide to use any of these, 3 to 4 balls for a 3X and up. Anything smaller than that, like a size large to a 2X, will probably require 3 balls. Anything less than that, 2 balls. Child size, obviously 1 ball. You can make this. Isn't this the cutest sweater ever? So I can't get back far enough to show you the full length of it, but I will take pictures, and that will be in the thumbnail of the picture. I really enjoyed working with this yarn. I love the regular Puzzle, the acrylic one. I love it. It's beautiful. It's soft. It washes up beautifully. I kind of fell in love with the Puzzle Cotton while I was working with this. This is even softer. It feels delightful. It made a beautiful sweater. And there's parts of this yarn that is just so soft, like it just makes me so happy. I am making another one in this colorway as well. I did not have time to finish it because, and you will see in the tutorial right after this intro, you're going to see I'm going to start off the video making this one, because I started this one first and then I realized I kind of want to make a tutorial, so then I had to make a second one. So the beginning of the tutorial will be this part of this. Is this color not gorgeous? It will be this part of the sweater, and then I will move on and show you how to finish it in this colorway. I did not have time to finish this one, but rest assured I will show you this when it's finished on my channel. That is what it's going to look like. Is this not beautiful? Either one of those, gorgeous. All right, let's get on to the tutorial. But once again, I say this at the end of the video as well. If you decide to make any of my designs, any of my patterns, please share it on your social medias for several reasons. I really like seeing what you have made and the changes you have made and the yarns and the colors that you have picked when you make my creations. But it also really helps the channel to share, to get it out there and say, hey, this is a good pattern. And I really like the promotion and seeing all of the body types in my patterns, so that we can really say, hey, yes, this pattern really does work for all sizes of your body. That is what I really strive for on this channel, is to have body inclusivity in all of my patterns. I try to make it so that every size person, no matter what shape or size you are in, you could make my designs. And I really appreciate you guys sharing it. So with that, let's get on to the tutorial. And also another way to support and help the channel is to buy yarn from the affiliated links below in the video. I link them below, but you can also buy the puzzle at Walmart if you don't like ordering online. Like, that's cool too, like whatever. It all supports Premier Yarns and I'm down for that. Puzzle is, like I said, available at Walmart, but it's also available on premieryarns.com, and those links will be below. Stay tuned for the tutorial. Bye guys. Okay everybody, we're going to start this tutorial, but I have not finished the first sweater yet, so we are going to go back and forth between the two colors. I'm actually going to be making two sweaters simultaneously, so if you see a different sweater at different parts of this, keep that in mind. It just makes the tutorial a little bit faster if I work on both of them simultaneously. This beautiful peachy blue color is the colorway Sherbet. Just keep sliding off my desk. It is going to take an estimated 4 balls of the puzzle cotton, and it will take about 4 balls of the regular puzzle if you decide to use that instead of the puzzle cotton. And the other one I'm using is Snapdragon. So we're going to start the tutorial actually with the Snapdragon. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the neckline first. I am using a 6.5 millimeter hook. You can use a 7 or a 6 or an 8 if you so choose. It doesn't make a huge difference because we are going to measure this to our own bodies. And the difference in the size of the hook is really just going to matter with how big or how drapey your stitches are. It's not going to matter with the size as much of the garment because you are measuring this to your own body. As with a lot of my tutorials, I'd like to do the patterns and the tutorials as a measure on your body type situation because everyone has different shaped bodies, different size bodies, and that way we can all have a garment no matter how big or how small. Now to start, we are going to do, I'm going to pull out my center of this ball. I'm going to move my water cup over there so we're not blocking any of this light, because we kind of need some light happening over here. It's a little bit dark in my room today and I don't know why. To start, we're going to start with foundationless single crochets. And if you don't know how to do a foundation single crochet, I'm going to show you, but if you still can't understand with that, I understand you can just do chains. The chains will work. I like doing the foundationless single crochet better. It just helps me to keep track of which way the chain is going so I don't twist the chain when we're joining in the round. Now I am going to do, with a 6.5 millimeter hook, a foundationless single crochet row of 80 stitches. So we're going to start with 80 foundationless single crochet. You could do a chain of 80. We need this in a multiple of 4. So if you want to make this in a child size, I would probably start with foundationless single crochet in probably 40, or move up to 60 would probably work. And wait a minute, is 60 divisible by 4? I think it is. Let me just check my calculator because my brain is not turned on right now. Yeah, it is. 60 is divisible by 4? Alright, so for a child size, depending on the size of the child, you can start with a chain of 40 or a chain of 60. You are also going to need stitch markers, which I think my stitch markers are upstairs. Of course they are. Why would they be down here where I need them? No, they're not. They're right here. I have some upstairs and I have some downstairs. You just need 4 stitch markers to get started. We got a little Christmas truck. We got a little star. All of my stitch markers are in the same container, so like whether they are knit, we'll get a donut. And so I gotta fish through and make sure I'm finding the crochet stitch markers and a heart. All right. I really need to pull out the pumpkin ones that are in there. I'm feeling Halloween-y. All right, now to make a foundationless single crochet, you are going to create a slip knot first, and to do that, you just create like an awareness ribbon with a short tail on the bottom. You see that? Hold it at the, pinch it there. pull up a loop. That's a slip knot. It's that simple. Okay, now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. This little section that's open here next to the knot, that's our first stitch. So we're going to go in there, pull up a loop. Now we're going to chain 1. That counts as the chain at the bottom. So this is basically creating a chain and a single crochet in one. So you always got to chain 1 and then single crochet, so you take off 2. Okay, now see, there's still some holes happening here. There's 2 loops down here at the bottom that you need to go around. See that? That's at the bottom. That's your chain stitch. Pull up a loop. You pull through. Chain 1. And then chain, or pull off the 2. So that's your single crochet. And again, this is the top part. This is the single crochet section. Okay, so you stick your hole right there. Right above that, there's like 3 little pieces of string. You need to get between there and grab just the 2 bottom ones. Chain 1. Actually, pull up a loop, chain 1, single crochet. That's how you make a foundationless single crochet. Now, like I said, if you can't figure this out, if this is confusing to you, go ahead and chain, and then you can do a row of single crochet on top of that. But we need 80 because we're doing a bigger size. And what we're going to do is we're going to chain 20, and we're going to put a stitch marker. We're going to chain 20, put a stitch marker. Chain 20, put a stitch marker. Now, if you're doing anything other than 80 stitches, because you want to make this smaller neckline, you want to make it smaller for a smaller person or smaller child, just in the 4 sections. So let's say 60 divided by 4 was 15, I think. So every 15 stitches you would do it for a chain of 60, every 10 stitches for a chain of 40, etc. But we are making a size 3X for the purpose of this tutorial. This neckline size will work for 5X, 6X, as long as you don't have a really big head. As long as it fits over your head, it will fit your body. Okay? So just keep doing this, and if you want to count your stitches, because this looks different than what you're used to, just turn it this way and count the V's. So there's a V here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's our 6 stitches. Or pull it apart and count how many holes you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Okay? And as long as the spaces in between the 4 stitch markers are equal, you're good to go. But like I said, if you just can't get this, if your brain cannot wrap around this, there are other tutorials you can leave and watch a tutorial for foundationless single crochets with a less busy yarn that you can see a little bit better. And maybe I'll make a short for this in a different yarn so you guys can see how to make the foundationless single crochets. But if you can't, just do a chain of 80 and then come back and do a row of single crochets on top of that. See that? It's kind of pulling a little bit right there. Try that again. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oops. Alright, I am at my 20th stitch. So right there on that last section, I'm going to put my little stitch marker. Because our next row, we're going to have to increase on those 4 corners. That's why I have you mark them, so you don't have to come back and count the next row. Because that's just a pain in the neck. I apologize if my hands are a little bit jittery this morning. I'm just going to chain another 20. Once I learned the foundationless single crochets, foundationless half double, foundationless double crochet, like I have never gone back to just doing a chain row. I just find it so much easier, and that it gives it like a more sturdy foundation. It does take a little bit of extra concentration and a little bit of practice. But once you get it, like, you'll be flying by. And I already lost count because I kept talking. I think I'm at 14, but I'm not sure. And since I'm at 20 in what I think is the 20th, I'm going to put my stitch marker, but I'm going to go back and count because I just want to make sure I didn't miscount, because it is kind of important for these numbers to be correct. 1, 2, 3. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 19, 20. I think I'm good. I'm gonna do 20 more. Alright. So I am at the 19th. Oops. And then the 20th, which is my last row. I totally skipped a whole section for you guys, so that's my last stitch of the row. So that's my 20th. That's actually my 80th stitch. What I do is I just count 20, stitch marker, 20, stitch marker, 20, stitch marker. And what we're going to do is we're going to connect it here. So what you should have is kind of a circle. And we're at the 4 corners, which is going to be the 4 points of the neckline. You should have a stitch marker. Now, to connect this in the round, we're going to have to do something funky because it is, it's technically, we already created 2 rows. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back in, like we're going to make another stitch, okay? But instead of making another stitch, we're going to slip into the bottom section where we created that first part of the stitch, where our knot, right where your knot is. Right where your knot is. Slip in there. Pull up through the first section and pull through that first part right there. So now you have 2 on here. Now we're going to slip into the top part where the single crochet part is. Okay, and pull through all 3 of those. And that's how we connect it. See? And now it's connected at the top and the bottom, so it's not just connected here. So you won't have like an open stitch here where you need to like connect it. Now we are going to turn our work around, and we are going to slip backwards into that first stitch, or the last stitch we created, right where your stitch marker is. Just slip where your stitch marker is. Okay. Now that we're in where our stitch marker is, we can move our stitch marker just for a minute. We're gonna chain 3, that counts as a double crochet, and put another double crochet in that same stitch, and then put a stitch marker in either one of those, because that's just going to signify that's the end, that's the mark that marks our corner. Okay, then we're going to double crochet in each one of these stitches across. Just double crochet across. We're just creating the collar right now. This would be a good time to slip this over your head and see if it fits where you want it to fit on your neckline. Make sure it fits over your head. You want it to fit on a comfortable place on your neck to where you feel like it's not choking you or it's not too big. If it's too big, just decrease. Just take it back a couple of stitches. Make sure it's still in a multiple of 4. Whatever your stitch count is for your first row, just make sure divide that number by 4, and whatever that number is, put a stitch marker. So like 60 divided by 4 is 15, so we would put the stitch marker at the 15th spot. 80 divided by 4 is 20, so we did that on the 20th stitch, etc. Alright, now we're to the spot where the stitch marker is. We're going to pop that out. We're going to put 3 double crochet. In the second one that we create, put your stitch marker back in that one. That's our increase stitch. And then put the 3rd. Okay, so that's our corner, that's our increase. That's going to help us get around the corner so it continues to go in the round. You're going to do that at all the corners. And I know that first one only has 2 double crochet in it, but when we come back around, instead of slip stitching, we're going to put another double crochet in that corner. And then we'll have 3. It'll just make that section look less gappy. Now I have a question for you while we're doing this double crocheting. Do any of you listen to music while you crochet? Because what music I listen to while I crochet depends on how fast or how slow I crochet. And as a matter of fact, right now I have headphones on my ears because when I'm not talking, when I pause the video to just get through the section, I turn on my music because it motivates me to crochet. In case any of you want to know what song is currently in my ears, it's Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. And it makes me crochet a lot faster. And since I waited so long to do this tutorial and I have a schedule of what day I want it to air, I am pumping metal in my ears today because metal makes me crochet faster. And that way I can get this done, or at least get progress on it. Alright, so we're at the stitch marker. Remember, we're going to put 3 in, so we're going to double crochet 1, 2, whoops, I dropped it. Put the stitch marker in the second one, and then 3. Alright. And then we're going to do the same thing all the way around. Just double crochet at the corners, put 3, and move your stitch marker into the second of those 3. The next row, we're going to do front post, back post, which for some reason I wrote it as front loop, back loop, but it's front post, back post. I'm looking at my notes because I had to go back through, because when I first started making the sweater, I was like, okay, I didn't think I was going to be making a tutorial. And then I got partway through and I was like, but I really like this sweater. And so I didn't take notes. So I had to go back through and look at what I did and then write post crochet notes so that I could remember what I did after the fact. I like this colorway. I figured when I ordered more yarn, because I didn't have enough to finish the peachy one, I was like, alright, well, I kind of want to make a second one for the tutorial. What yarn do I want to make? Alright, so we're at the stitch marker again. I'm going to put 3. I was like, I don't want another lightweight one because fall is coming and winter is coming. And even though I have no problem wearing pastels in the middle of winter, or white for that matter, I kind of wanted a darker colored one. And so that's why I gravitated towards this one, which I'm kind of digging now. I think this will look really nice with a pair of jeans, like dark blue jeans, or black leggings for that matter. Any leggings, dark blue leggings, green leggings if you got them, purple, doesn't matter, sweatpants, I don't care. I ain't gonna judge you what you wear your sweater with. And this sweater is gonna be pretty enough that you could wear it with a nice pair of pants out in public, or if you're just cold and you want to cuddle up in something crocheted, then you can do that. I'm going to make this one a little bigger than the peach one though, because the peach one's a little bit snug. And it fits me. It fits me just fine, but I kind of want like an oversized one. So I think I'm going to make both. I'm going to make this one's going to be a little oversized. So this one will probably be more like a 4X, maybe closer to a 5X, just because I want it baggy. But the other one is definitely true to a 3X. That confused me. That was laying like that. It looked like it was turned upside down, like I twisted it. Got all confused. I got confuzzled. All right. We have one. I can't tell if that's a stitch or not. Let me count these. So between stitch markers, I should have actually an extra stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I am perfectly on. So that's not a stitch right there. But because this is only a 2 double crochet we started at the beginning of the row, I'm going to put the third double crochet in that same first stitch, and then I am going to slip stitch into the chain 3, pull my stitch marker out, we're going to chain 3. Now this is where things get a little bit hairy, okay? We're going to front post, back post, but on the corners we're still going to do the 3 stitches. So on either side of the front post or back post that we're creating here, we need to put an extra stitch. So to do that, we're going to chain 3 out of the side of the stitch here, and then we're going to front post, double crochet. Okay, and then we're going to go into this top of the second double crochet here, and we are going to put a double crochet. Now because these are more towards the back, you're going to actually front post this stitch too. Okay, so even though it's technically 2 front posts next to each other, these are going to look like they're back posts because they're back just a little bit more, and this gives us an increase on the corners. Okay, so you're actually going to have the 3 stitches are all going to be front post on this stitch right here. Okay, because see how that looks like back post, front post, even though it's front post, regular double crochet front post. Now the next stitch, you're going to back post, double crochet, and then front post, double crochet. I'm going to try to go slow so you guys can see what I'm doing. To make a front post, you just go around the post from the front. To make a back post, you just go around the post from the back, like that. And again, if this is too complicated and you can't get it, that's fine. You can just do double crochets in this row. It's not going to make a big difference. But on the corners, you need to put an increase. So front post. I always try to give alternatives because I know not everybody has an easy time with learning new stitches. And some people, their brain just cannot wrap around what is happening. And that is okay. Like, make this sweater whatever you want it to be. It's your sweater. If you struggle so hard that you hate it and you want to throw it, change the stitch. I'm fine with that. Need to pull out some more yarn without tangling it. Yeah, we got tangle. You know, I like this cotton. I really do. I hate honeycomb things. I just would rather it be in a skein or a cake. Someone's texting me. It's my niece. Hang on, bear with me, guys. Alright. Just continue front post, back post until you get to the stitch she is still texting me. Hang on. I told her, well, we're talking about nieces. She's back at college. I told her I have a JMU, because that's at her college. I don't think I've ever said that on here before, but it's not a big deal. It's like, it's a big campus. Ain't nobody gonna find her. They don't even know her. I have a sticker for family of a JMU student. And her mom got the parent one, my daughter or whatever. And because of situations, I am very much the parent in the situation. I was like, I deserve a parent one. I don't want a family one anymore. I don't want to be your mom, but I'm doing all the parent stuff. I'm driving you back and forth. You live with me. Like, I deserve that. And so that's what she's texting me right now. I was like, which one did I want? I don't want the mom one. I want the parent. Because I'm not her mom. All right, so we're back towards the corner, right? So this stitch is, remember, all three of these are going to be front posts. So we're going to front post that one. See, we have the 3 here. So I front post this one. And then the second one here is where the stitch marker is. We're going to pop that stitch marker out just for a minute. And on either side of that middle stitch is the regular double crochet loops you would work into. So we're going to just make a regular double crochet in there. That's going to count as the back loop. And then we're going to front post the second one. Okay. And then that same one right there on the other side, we're going to just put a regular old double crochet. That's our increase for the corner. And then we're going to front post the third one. Okay. So the corners are front post, regular double crochet, front post, regular crochet, front post. See how it looks like it's still part of the stitch? So that's what we're doing. Now we need to go into that middle front post and put our stitch marker again, because that's still our increase. And then we'll go to this one, will be a back post. Don't worry, I'm going to show you the corner again. Just continue front post, back post, all the way around. Front post, back post, till we fall on the ground. And like I said, if anything in any of my tutorials doesn't make sense to you, change it. It's fine. Or if there's a little thing that you're like, hey, I don't really like that, change it. I am perfectly fine with that. Make it how you want it. Make it how you're comfortable with it. I am not one of those people that's like, oh, that's my design, don't mess with it. Don't mess with it, because that's how we learn. That's how we learn to design our own stuff. And I say this in almost all my tutorials. I am teaching you guys so that one day you don't need me. So that one day you're like, hey, I want to make something. There's not a Cinnamon Stitches video. I can figure this out on my own. That is my goal. That is my job as a teacher, is to teach you so that you don't need me anymore. Because I believe in you and I know that you can do this. All right, we're approaching the corner again. So there's our 3 corner stitches again. 1, 2, 3. This is going to be a front post, regular double crochet, front post, regular double crochet, front post. Okay. Front post. And you might have to pull that back a little bit so you can see the hole. Double crochet, front post, double crochet, front post. Put your stitch marker back into that second one. And then proceed with the back post, front post, back post, front post. Alright guys, you guys got this. It's not. And then the next row is just going to be double crochet. It's just going to be double crochet. We're just going to do a row of regular double crochet. We're not going to do the front post, back post. We're just going to do regular old double crochet. I just liked adding the little front post, back post here. It gives it a little extra detail, a little je ne sais quoi. And then the next row will be just straight double crochets around. We're still going to increase on the corners. We're still going to increase in that same stitch where the stitch markers are. And the next row is going to prepare us to create the granny stitches. It'll be a little bit easier for us to see what we're doing by basing it off of granny or double crochets instead of front post, back post. Did I mess up? I must have missed a stitch somewhere because that should be a front post. So because I think I missed a stitch, I'm going to add an extra stitch in there. That will count as the back post because we're just fudging it. It's fine. It'll be fine. Everything's fine. So we were front posted, and this is a way you could fudge it. Okay, if you have one stitch you're missing, I think that's where I lost. Remember, I couldn't remember if I counted or not. So the 3 stitches is front post, regular double crochet, front post, and if you ended on the wrong stitch, just add a stitch in like we are here. It'll be fine. Front post again. Put our stitch marker back in that middle front post. And then proceed back to the pattern of back post, front post. And also because this yarn is marled and self-striping, so see how it's changing colors, it will hide any imperfections or mistakes you may make. Because your eye is going to be like, wow, that's a really cool pattern. And your eye is going to be looking at the color in the pattern, not the stitches so much. So that's why Granny Stitch works really well with this yarn, because A, it hides imperfections, and B, the stitch doesn't really need to be seen. You're not looking for like fancy stitches. Like I would not use this yarn for like shells and like intricate crochet work, but it works really good with granny shells because you can still kind of see like what's happening with the yarn, and you don't really need to see the stitches so much. And that's one thing to remember when you're doing certain stitches. If you want your stitches to be seen because they're intricate or they're designs or whatever, you want to do a simpler yarn. But for a more busy yarn like this, marled and self-striping, you're going to want to go ahead and use like a simple stitch. Alright, we are almost back to the beginning. I said alright and I heard Matthew McConaughey in my head. Alright, alright, alright. Alright, so we're back to the beginning. We are going to... Did I not front post that one? Apparently not. We're going to front post that last stitch. See, I'm already lost. And then we're going to slip stitch that double crochet we created. Alright, now here's where it's going to get easy. Where's my slip stitch marker? Did I lose a stitch marker, guys? I lost a stitch marker. Do you see what I did with it? Guess I gotta grab another one. Ow. Oh, I never put it back. It's on my paper. Right here. Right there, that's where it goes. Alright, so I'm going to slip stitch into that very first front post. I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to put 2 more. I might as well just pop that out. 2 more double crochets. So that counts as the first double crochet. We're going to put my stitch marker back in there. So chain 3, then the first double crochet after the chain 3 is where you put your stitch marker, because that's the middle. And we have, see, the 3 on the corner. And then in every stitch across, just put a double crochet. Where your stitch marker is, put 3 double crochet. And this is the setup row before we create the granny stitches. It's just double crochet all the way around, but you don't really need to see this part because this part is like very basic. I'll show you to the first corner, and then I'll meet you at the end of the row. Double crochet. I really like this yarn. I like the way it feels. I like the way the color blends into itself. Like, it's changing color, but there's no harsh breaks. It's one of the things I love about puzzle. It's clearly got lots of color happening, but there ain't no harsh breaks. You can use literally double crochet, treble, it doesn't matter. We're almost to the stitch marker. We're at the stitch marker. 3 double crochet. 1, 2, put the stitch marker back. 3. Alright guys, I will meet you at the end of the row. Just keep doing that. 3 on the corners. Just double crochet in every stitch all the way across. Slip stitch to join the first chain 3. Alright, so I made it all the way back to the corner. I'm going to slip stitch to join in that chain 3. Alright, now this is where we can start removing our stitch markers. I really need to get rid of the needles on top of that. I keep poking myself. Because that section is now going to be a granny square increase, which is a lot easier to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch back into that stitch. We're going to chain 3, 2 double crochets. Okay, so that's our first granny shell. We're going to chain 2 to get us around the corner. And then we are going to put another granny shell, which is 3 double crochet. Okay, now we are not going to chain 1 in between our granny shells along the edges. Okay, the only chains will be in the corner, and that will be a chain 2. So granny shell, chain 2, granny shell. Now we are going to skip 1, 2, and in the third we're going to put a granny shell. So 1, 2, 3. No chains. Skip 1, 2, and in the third, put a granny shell. 1, 2, 3. Skip 2, and in the third, put a granny shell. 2, 3. Skip 2, and in the third, granny shell. Skip 2, and in the third, granny shell. Chain, or not chain, don't chain. Skip 2, and in the third, granny shell. Now if you don't have an even amount of stitches here, because we are chaining that, we all did different chains, okay? If you don't have exactly a multiple of 3 between the stitch markers, don't matter, fudge it. Skip 2, and in the third put a granny shell. I'll show you what I mean. Skip 2, and in the third, granny shell. Alright, now we only have 1 stitch between the last granny shell and the corner, so it don't matter. Don't matter. Take your stitch marker out and still put your increase. So granny shell, chain 2, granny shell, and then continue the pattern as per usual. Okay. See? Does not matter whatsoever. It's going around in a circle to fit our body. It's not going to matter that whether we have to skip a stitch or fudge it, it's not going to matter. Okay? So skip the next 2. Put a granny shell in the 3rd. We're going to do this all the way around. All the way around. Skip 2, put it in the 3rd. Skip 2 in the 3rd. I'm going to show you one more corner and then I will pause it because this corner should be exactly like that one. We're going to have to fudge it again. 2, 3. And because that corner is so obvious that that's a corner, unless you're having trouble seeing the stitches, we don't need the stitch markers anymore. So I'm just getting rid of them because I don't need them. Skip 2 and in the 3rd. Now we're back to the corner. There's only one stitch between there. Doesn't matter. I'm going to put our corner, which is granny shell, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, continue the pattern, turn it around, see how that's looking. See? And if you use a bigger hook than the 6.5, you're just going to have bigger holes in there. But you absolutely can feel free to do that. Skip 2 and in the 3rd. Alright, I'm going to pause you and I'm going to meet you at the end of this row. Alright, so I got to the end and what I noticed is I missed a stitch on this side. So as long as you have the same amount between your increases, the same amount of granny stitches or granny shells, you're good to go. So each one of my sides should have 10 shells. And here I only have 8 and I have 1 here, so I have to put an extra one in there. So as long as you have the same amount of shells, and it doesn't have to be 10, it could be 9, 8, it doesn't matter. As long as whatever your starting chain was, make sure that you have the same amount of shells on all 4 sides. Okay, so now I have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm good to go. Now I can slip stitch to join. And this is going to be your repeat for however many times. Let me grab my bigger sample. We're going to continue this in the round the same way. So what we're going to do is we're going to reverse every row. We're going to turn it backwards. We're going to slip stitch back into the spot we just joined in. We're going to chain 3, put 2 more double crochets. That counts as a granny shell. All the way around. If you can do a granny stitch, you can do this. This is just very basic. There's no spaces in between. We're just doing granny shells to the corner, and then in each corner we're going to have granny shell, chain 2, granny shell in this spot where my finger is. We're going to do this until it is long enough. Hang on. Let me finish that stitch. So that when we fold this in half, these parts right here, these 2 corners on this side and this side, will connect under your armpits. Okay? So we're going to keep this in the round. Like this right now will probably fit a little girl. very easily, and then we just go to the next step. I could totally see this on my niece. I think this would fit her very well. We're going to keep going in the round until we can fold it in half and put stitch markers or safety pins or something, and this fits very comfortably under our arms, and we have enough room all right here for our arms, all of the arm fat, whatever because some of us got bat wings. We need this hole here to be big enough that our arm slides through easily, and that this ain't real tight in our armpit, and we can move our arms all around in circles and take off flying if we wanted. So you just need to make sure this fits to that point. So we're going to continue this same row until we get to that point. And let me move your camera up a little bit so I can show you. I'm screwing everybody in. Hang on, we're dropping. Alright, everybody's screwed in now. So see how this one's still connected. See how we got the neckline here? And we just kept doing that row in the round. Okay? Till we folded it in half and I'm able to connect it here. And then we're going to start working this in the round this way. And we're going to ignore the sleeves until we're done. Okay? So just continue in the round, this whole round. Round and around. Till it fits like a shirt. Okay? That's what we're doing right now. I will show you this last row. This is going to be the repeat row that you are going to repeat until it fits you under your arms. And I'm going to take a break and I'm going to go work out. I need to get on the elliptical. I'll try to get you guys zoomed in without having to rearrange everything. There we go. Can you see? All right, we're good. Now, just continue. Just remember, I like to go, when this row starts, I like to flip it and go in the opposite direction. And then when the next row, we flip it and go in the opposite direction. And I like to do that because when you're doing a granny square, if you keep going in the same section like that, a lot of times your square will like get like a slant to it. So you can prevent that by flipping it every row and just going back and forth. Okay, that's why we do it that way. It's to stop it from slanting to one side. It makes the square more squarish instead of like a parallelogram or a rhombus. So all we're doing is just granny square. It's just a big old granny square with a hole in the middle. And those first set of rows is where you really have to keep track and count. The rest of these, we just keep on going around. It'll keep on increasing. Every row, you will gain one granny shell. So whereas the last row had 10 granny shells on each side, this one will have 11. And in the corners, we're doing, don't forget, granny shell, chain 2, granny shell, and that's how that side looks like that. This pattern is pretty easy, and when I started this pattern, because our phones listen to everything we say and do, I started seeing all these other patterns online for granny stitch cardigans and granny stitch sweaters, and I was like, okay, and I kind of hesitated. I was like, okay, do I want to make yet another one? Do I want to put another granny shell sweater on the market? And I was like, yeah, I do, because I want to show an example of how to do this yarn for a plus size person, because a lot of the patterns and tutorials are all for skinny people, which is fine. But for me personally, because I'm a big girl, I want to see more representation of myself on the internet. I want to see a big girl making a big sweater, you know? And that's why I went ahead with this. And I'm using a bulky yarn with lots of color that just screams cinnamon stitches. So while yes, there are a lot of granny stitches, a lot of granny shell sweaters and cardigans on the market, there's not a Cinnamon Stitches one. And so because of that, I am making this, well, no, because of my own personal preference, I'm making this a short sleeved sweater because I'm hot all the time. And I want a little bit of warmth, but I don't want to be like, I don't like long sleeves. I don't like long sleeves. Matter of fact, I will wear tank tops all year round. However, if you want to go ahead and make this a full sleeve, you are more than welcome to do that. But my sleeves for this sweater are going to hit me at my elbow. They're going to stop right above my elbow. And I just think it's going to be a fun little sweater that I can wear when it's cold out. Because even though this puzzle cotton is listed as a 4-weight, like I have said in previous videos, it is the same thickness as the 5-weight cotton or puzzle. And yeah, I'm kind of liking, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that peachy one. That peachy one is beautiful. I love it. I'm kind of liking the bold, drastic color changes in this, whereas that one is much more subtle. So depending on whether you're a more subtle person or you're a more loud, vibrant person like I am, will depend on what colorway you pick for this. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And because it's a thicker yarn, because we're using a little bit of a bigger hook, this doesn't take very long to work up. I mean, I've been sitting here maybe all of 2 hours, if that. Let me see what time it is. Yeah, I've been sitting here an hour, not even 2 hours. Now, hopefully I can get it finished by Thursday because, you know, life is chaotic and it's planned to go up on Thursday. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to succeed at that, but we're going to try. I was talking to Mr. Cinnamon this morning and he's all, you know, I think you'll be able to have that done in just like 2 days. I was like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, I'm making it for my body. It's not like it's a small sweater. I'm pretty much making a wearable blanket, right? But it really, you should be able to get this done in under a week. Not a problem whatsoever. Just repeat this row, and I will count on my sweater to give you a stitch count idea of how many rows I had to do for a 3X. But again, measure it to your body. Don't go by my body. My body is shaped differently than your body. I may be bigger in places that you're smaller in, or vice versa. Bentley's over in his bed sleeping so peacefully. Making little weird puppy noises. He is going to be a year old on September 3rd. That is the day he was born. He was born in the shelter. His mama came in pregnant off the streets. He was born September the 3rd. Of course, his gotcha date was in November. Alright, we're to that last corner. And if I'm ever crocheting too fast, you can slow these videos down on YouTube. There's a setting, slow it down, there's a little gear icon. I do it quite frequently. I especially do it when people are shopping and they're like, they're doing this across the yarn. I'm like, come on, slow down. But then I have to mute it because then they sound really weird. Alright, so we're going to slip stitch to join here because we made it around the corner. And then remember, we're going to turn our work again. Okay? We're going to go back around that way. And yes, that will cause a little bit of color pooling because we're going to be having this color back on top of that color. You're not going to notice that in the grand scheme of things. So we turn turned it back around that way. We're going to slip stitch back into the little space we just made when we slip stitched. Chain 3. Granny stitch. Oh, this part of the yarn is really soft. 2, and then in the corner we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to keep repeating this row, okay? Just keep going around with the granny square. You know how to do that. All right, now I'm going to grab the other sweater and give you an idea how many rows I had to do for a size 3X. All right, so how many rows of granny shell? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 rows. I did 14 rows of the granny stitch. So I counted this very first row. I did 14 rows before I connected it underneath the armpits for a 3X. And this hole actually is kind of on the big side for my arms. So I may do a little decreasing on the arms. It'd be fine. I might like seam that up a little bit more. But the basis is we want it to be able to fit. Let me zoom it back out. Oh, that's the wrong direction. Zoom it back out. All right. You want it to be able to fit on your body. Neck. You want your neck hole big enough. We already checked for that. You want your armhole big enough that all of your arm can fit in there. But the more important part is we want this part to very easily fit across your chest or bust. And you want it to connect here without being tight across that area. Okay, so you want it to fit there. For me, at this point in my life, my bust is actually bigger than my waist. So if your bust is bigger than your waist and you want to do some decreases after that, you can do that. That'll be fine. If you have a bigger gut than you have a bust, that also is fine, and you can put increases. So just ever so many stitches, put an extra granny shell. We'll get to that when we get to it. But you can make this bigger or smaller in certain areas just by adding or taking away extra shells. Okay, so just continue around until this fits around your body and connects under your arms comfortably. And then we will move on to the next step. All right, so I have put on 14 rows of the granny stitch. So from here, you can count the corners, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 14. That is where we are at. Make some room, because this is getting to be large. There are lots of things to snag my yarn on my desk. All right. So what I did is I put this on and I made sure that very easily these points touch underneath my arms. Apparently now I have a pile of dead batteries. So I need to charge them. So what we're going to do is we're going to be connecting under here. And we can always, if this hole is too big, because sometimes our arms are not as big around as like our stomachs are large. So while this may be big enough to fit, this gap might be too big for your arms, that's fine. We can actually, when we're done connecting this in the round, we can seam up the arms right here to make the armholes a little smaller. All you gotta do is like running stitch here. And we'll work on that later, but right now we're gonna work on connecting the arms in the round. So I'm gonna come to this side. That's where my stitches are at, all right? And we're still going to be working the granny stitch, but we're going to be working it in the round now, in a different form on the round. Instead of going up and around the whole thing, we're going to connect here, and we're going to go around the stomach area. Get everything situated. All right, now I'm going to zoom us in. I swear it's 100 degrees outside, but it's really cold in my house, so I got a sweater on. All right, so this, I'm just going to slip stitch over. You can turn and go back in the other direction if you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch over into the next granny space. Once again, chain 3. And we're going to do that weird join under the arm like we did when we joined the first row. So we're going to have to connect like through it, not slip stitch to the top of the row. We're going to have slip stitch through the top and the bottom to connect, but also create stitches. I know I just confused myself. I have no idea what I just said. I'll show you when we get to the edge. So just do granny until you get to that corner. You hear Juju and Bentley arguing. Bentley is very vocal and he will talk back to you. He absolutely will talk back to you. I'm really liking the way this color is working out. Isn't that beautiful? This is why I like puzzle. This is the main reason why I love puzzle. And puzzle cotton, they're both, this is the puzzle cotton, by the way. Puzzle and puzzle cotton does this beautiful coloring. It just makes me happy. Alright, so we are in the last section before the corner. So what we're going to do, see, I just folded it together, but what we're really going to do is we're going to lay it. So this is the armhole. We're going to kind of lay it on top of each other a little bit. So you take the whole of this corner and the whole of this corner. That ain't it. It's right there. And you kind of stick your finger through there and hold it, okay? And what we're going to do, and you can put a stitch marker here if you want. We're going to work these two corners together, and the reason I'm doing it this way is so that we have extra support underneath here. And then if you want to seam that up, you still can. I did this with the other sweater so that I know that it works. So you're going to overlap the two corners, one on top of the other, and we're going to put a granny shell in that corner. See, like that. 2, and then 3. That just gives it a little extra structure there. And see, it's only overlapped a little bit, and then you can still seam this up, and it's not gonna, if you need to make this armhole smaller, which I am definitely going to be doing. And then continue around with the granny shell all the way around. Do the same thing on the other arm side. So now, see, it's connected. We have an armhole. Dang dogs keep wanting to come in here. We had some crazy storm roll through last night. I went to bed a little bit early because I was exhausted. And Mr. Cinnamon has been out of town, so I'm not sleeping real well because he's not here. And by the time you see this video, he will be back in town. But right now, as of the recording of this, he's out of town. And I fell asleep at like 10 o'clock. And at around 10:20, man, the thunder was rolling, lightning was flashing. It was very, very loud and aggressive sounding outside. And I was like, usually I could sleep through that. Nope, not last night. Woke me wide awake. I'm like, well, I had a nice 20-minute nap there. I'm really surprised that a little man didn't wake up. Oreo did, though. Oreo is my oldest of the 3 dogs. She is a Dalmatian pointer mix. She is very, very high-strung and high anxiety. And the storm scared her, but she was in Juju's room because that's where she sleeps. She doesn't like fire alarms. She doesn't like thunder, loud noises. She's cool with, like, fireworks don't scare her. But, yeah, she doesn't like storms. And she used to be fine with storms. I don't know what happened. Just one day she's like, okay, I just don't like storms. I'm going to freak out. And I think that happened sometime around when we got Bentley. So when it was just her and Scarlet, or before Scarlet, when it was her and our other dog that passed away, Day Day. She was fine. Like, storms were cool, like, whatever. But for some reason, since Bentley got here, she's scared of a lot more things. And Bentley's not scared of storms, so it's not him, like, telling her to be scared. He could care less about loud noises. It's just weird. So, yeah, that's how my night went. And since I believe I mentioned it, the beef stew last night for dinner was delicious. I haven't made beef stew in probably 10 years. Maybe even longer than that. Because for a long time, it has been Mr. Cinnamon making the beef stew. Because I made my mom's recipe of beef stew, which was just okay. But his recipe for beef stew is way better. And it had been so long since I made beef stew. And I just threw it in the crock pot. It had been so long since I made beef stew that I didn't remember my mom's recipe. And so I just followed what I know Mr. Cinnamon does. And it was delicious beef stew. Everybody really enjoyed it. And I told Mr. Cinnamon, I was like, I made beef stew and it was really good. And he said, yeah, but it wasn't mine. Alright, we're back to that corner. Bentley's barking. And Scarlett's growling. I'm going to fold our corner back up. Overlap the corners. And put a granny shell. Now, at this point, if you need an extra couple of inches at any point on here, you can put an extra granny shell in any space. So if you have a granny shell here, you want to put another one here to give you another little bit of a 1/2 inch width. You can put another granny shell here, and you could have did it on the other side. But if you get a little further down and like maybe that part of your stomach gets a little bit tight, you can, let me show you. You can obviously put another granny shell there, but let's say you're getting along and you're like, okay, well, it's a little bit wide, I want to add an extra granny shell. So you put the granny shell in to the space. You can throw an extra granny shell here on the actual, in the center of the granny shell of the rowboat fork, and then add the granny shell back in the space. That will give you a increase somewhere in your row. And just don't put too many or it will ruffle and do that, but you can occasionally do that. I would hide it under your arms. So in this area where it's going to be under your arms, I would hide the increases there. The same can be said for decreases. If you want to create a decrease, if you want this part to be smaller because you have a bigger bust than you do a waist, you can do a decrease by putting a stitch in one and then 2 stitches in the next. That will give you a decrease, and then you just take the space on either side of that section and put a granny shell. It'll give you a 1 granny shell decrease. So those are ways that you can adjust this to be bigger or smaller, and just hide those under your arm area. And then you can increase and decrease to your heart's content if you need it to be bigger or smaller once you get past the bust part. And then you're going to increase this row until it is the length that you want it to be. Now, keep in mind, this is going to grow when you wear it. Unless you wash it beforehand and do something to stretch out the fibers. When you crochet something, a lot of times it will grow. And it will... The stitches are tight now because you just crocheted it, but with wear it will warm up and the stretches will stretch a little bit and it will actually gain a little bit of length. So keep that in mind when you're crocheting this, is it might actually get like 1 inch longer or maybe even 2 inches longer when the stitches loosen up a little bit. So I actually stopped mine because I have the pink one we're going to switch to in a minute, and the pink one is, I already finished the entire body of it. It goes down to just above my hip bone. So like right about the midway point of the zipper on my jeans. And I know that wearing it is going to gain at least an inch, maybe 2 inches. And I just don't want it to be down to my knees, so I made it a little bit shorter than I actually want it to be, because I know that's going to stretch down a little bit. Now, because we are working a much shorter row, because before we were doing the whole perimeter of the shirt, like all the square around, and now we're just doing basically 2 sides, there is a greater chance for the colors to pool. So instead of turning and going back and forth, because we're not creating a square, so the square is not going to shift anymore because we're just working in the round. So when we were connecting our rows, like I'm going to do right here, hang on, let me finish this stitch. When we're slip stitching to join in the last row, we were turning and slipping into this stitch. We don't need to do that anymore, and if you do that now, you may have more color pooling. So what I'm going to do, you can still do that if you want. If you don't mind color pooling, that is fine. I'm just going to slip stitch across and continue the color sequence going in around. Chain 3. And then you're just going to continue this row until it reaches the length that you need. Now this is my second ball, I will say that. My second ball was attached, I think at like row 10 or 11. And we're already got a big chunk of the second ball worked out. So we're just going to take and continue this row. Repeat this row till it's the length that you want, and then we'll come back and we can adjust the arms. We can add a, what is that called? The bottom part of the shirt. This is like the easiest part of the shirt right here, is you just keep going in the round. Just keep making granny squares in the round, round and round and round. And see, now we got to the part underneath the arm, and nothing is different over here. We gotta do nothing special. We just continue putting in our granny stitches. Alright, I'm gonna stop here and I'm going to grab the pink shirt. See, that's what it should look like under the arm. I'm gonna grab the pink shirt. We're gonna work on that, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so I decided what we're going to do. This is, I switched over to the pink because this one is in more progress. We got it all the way down from where we connected to the arms for me. Remember, we did 13 rows here. For mine, I did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 additional rows from after the point we connected on the armpit to get it the length that I wanted. It is still connected to the ball here because that's what I did, but I'm going to disconnect this because I want to work on the arms now. You can go ahead and make ribbing on the bottom of this if you want, or you can leave this edge just like this if you want. Totally up to you. What did I do with my scissors? They're on the floor. Why would they be anywhere else? Alright. So you can add ribbing here. You can add any border you want on the bottom. I'm going to do ribbing when I come back. But for now, I'm just going to cut this and we're going to move on to the sleeves because that's what I really want to work on. So because I am bigger here than my arms are big, the armhole is a little bit big for me. You can leave this armhole big if you have bigger arms. My arms have shrunk a lot since I've lost weight recently. And I'm going to grab a yarn needle. I have a very large yarn needle. Before anybody asks, I believe I got this yarn needle on, I think, Hobie, I think. So I am going to thread that up. And I am going to seam this up about, I want to say, an inch or two, just to make the armhole a little bit smaller, because I want it to like kind of be tight on my arm. Not tight, I want it to fit my arm. So I'm going to seam this up a little bit. So I need to have it inside out. Flip it inside out. You don't have to do this part if you don't need it to be a smaller arm, or you're cool with the arms being bigger. You can just start the working in the round process, which I'll show you in just a moment. But for me, I'm going to cut a pretty good chunk of this. These scissors are terrible. I have better scissors that I just bought, but they're in another project bag. Alright, so what I like to do to connect yarn like this is I create a slip knot on one end. Like that. And then I connect my yarn right here into the slip knot, pull the slip knot, and now it's attached. Okay, that is how I attach my thread to here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and pinch, now this is inside out, remember, I'm going to pinch the sleeves together. And you see how you have the entire stitch here? I'm just going to make sure I grab both parts of the bottom of the stitch right there. And I'm just going to do like a quick little whip stitch. I'm actually going to work through that a second time that same stitch. You can work over the top of your tail if you want. You're still going to have to probably weave it in a little bit later. And it does get in the way. I'm just going to do this about 2 inches just to seam it up a little bit. To make the armhole a little bit smaller. And you can use any stitch that you prefer here. Whatever your preferred stitch is. I'm doing a whip stitch because this is going to be a heavy pull area, and I want the whip stitch to be a little bit stronger. So I'm going up the equivalent of 2 granny blocks. When I get to that last stitch, I'm going to put 2 or 3 stitches in that last stitch just for extra support. Make sure everything is tight. And while we're here, I'm going to weave this end in a little bit. So I'm going to go back down through some of these stitches. This was less work to do later. Nice and secure. And then cut it. And I'm going to go do the other arm the same way. Really need to find better scissors. Slip stitch. Oops, dropped my needle. Go to the other arm. Make sure you're still inside out. And hopefully I don't forget to flip this right side in when I'm done with this. Connect. Tighten, pull. keep this side of your arm close by so that you're making your armholes the same size. See, so we want to go to right there. You put a stitch marker there if you need to, but I know for me it's 2 granny shells. A quick stitch in here. What are you guys doing today? Are you working this with me or are you just watching? And if you're not making this, what are you working on? I'm always curious to know what you guys are doing while you're watching my videos. Christmas clock. I know Juju's watching TV. She must have the volume all the way down. I don't hear nothing. Alright, I'm in that last stitch of the second granny shell, so I'm going to put a couple of stitches in there. Make sure everything's pulled tight. Weave in my end while I'm here, because I hate weaving in my ends. Although, don't be like me, check to make sure that that is the same size hole as your other arm before you start weaving in. And there we have that. Now flip it back the right way. Don't forget to flip it the correct way. Alright. There. Now that armhole is way more reasonable. Let me make sure. Yep. Way more reasonable. Oh crap. So one thing that drives me nuts about this style of ball is that it falls apart on you. It was doing so good too. Alright, we'll just flop that back there. Alright, now we are going to start working on the sleeve. Now this sleeve is going to be just like a... my sleeve, I just want my sleeve to go to my elbow. So I'm going to put on... I'm thinking... because I want it to have a ribbed edge too. My yarn is getting caught on everything. So here's the armhole. Let me zoom you guys out a little bit so we have more room. I'm going to connect once again in. See how nice that looks? You can't even tell I seamed that up. I mean, you kind of can if you're really looking and you're pulling it apart, but like, no, it's going to be fine. It's under your arm. So I am going to connect right here. See how there's 2 holes here? Here and here? I'm going to connect because we're still doing the granny stitch. I'm going to slip stitch to join that. We're going to chain 1, 2, 3. Kind of thinking like between 5 and 7 rows for the sleeve of granny shell. So I made a granny shell, chain 3, 2 double crochet in that same hole, and then skip over here to the other side where we seamed up and put another granny. Now my bird clock to be joined with the wind chime. And we're going to do exactly like we did around the bottom. We're just going to put granny shells, no chain in between, around the armhole for 4 inches, 5 inches, depending on how long your upper arm is. And I'm going to leave... So whatever your arm measurement is, let's see if I can get my arm in. From here, actually I'm going to bring the sleeve to about here because I want to put ribbing on the bottom. So like whatever it is, whatever the measurement is from your shoulder to about right here, that's about 2 inches. So from your elbow to your shoulder minus 2 inches or however big you want the ribbing to be, we're just going to do this. I'm going to show you one sleeve. Well, I'm going to show you kind of one sleeve. You guys already know how to do this. We've been doing this the whole time, so I don't really need to show you the whole sleeve. You just do the granny around and around until you get the length that you want for your sleeve. You can absolutely make this a long sleeve if you don't mind the sleeves being big on the bottom part of your arm. But I'm capping this off at my elbow. Because I know some people like long sleeve shirts, and that's fine. I mean, if you live in a cold climate and you need long sleeves, you do this however you need it to be. For me personally, it's always hot here. Even in the wintertime, even when it's snowing, I don't generally need a jacket. It doesn't get that cold here. So for me, like, long sleeves are out. Not gonna happen. I don't like long sleeves. But you can absolutely make this long sleeve if you want. But I'm doing this and I'm designing this as a short sleeve sweater. I think it's going to be adorable. And make sure after you seam up that your arm fits in there comfortably and you can move your arms up and down. And it's not pulling at your armpit, because that's the worst thing, is when you get a sweater that just doesn't fit right there and it's always up in your armpit. And if you want these sleeves to be even shorter, I mean, you can do that as well. You can do like 2 rows and call it a day. It's your sweater. The key to making these sweaters, all of my designs really, the key to making them fit you is to keep trying them on. Don't guess, keep trying them on. I'm just going to slip stitch. I joined the row already. I'm slip stitching across into that next granny section. I'm going to chain 3, 2 double crochet in the same section, and continue this row around until you get the sleeve the length that you want. And you can also do, if you want to do decreases past the elbow part to make that part of your sleeve a little bit thinner, do the decrease that I showed you around the waist, to where you would like put part of the stitch over here and part of the stitch in the next hole like that. But keep this part on the underside of the arm so that you're not really seeing it on the outside. And then that will give you decreases past your elbow in case you want to make the arm a little more streamlined so that it fits your arm so it's not so big towards the wrist. You can do that as well. These are all the many options you have to make this your own sweater in your own design. So at this point, I'm actually on my 3rd ball. Yeah, because I have a whole ball left over. So I'm on my 3rd ball, and I'm thinking the 3rd ball might, I don't know. I may need the 4th ball, I may not. I don't know at this point. Because I still got to do the ribbing around the bottom, and I have to do the ribbing around the sleeves, and I have to do both sleeves. So I may need that 4th ball for a size 3X. But I'm not going to use the whole ball for a size 3X. By any means. But if I have yarn left over, I can make myself a cute matching hat. Or mittens, or anything like that. So when we have extra yarn left over after a project, it's like bonus yarn. I was working on a project the other day, and you guys would have already seen it by the time this video airs. I made a shawl and I had yarn left over. I was like, well, let's knit a hat while we're at it. And I still have enough yarn left over to make another hat. So that was like bonus and bonus yarn. All right, well, continue this row until you get your sleeve the length that you want. For me, it's going to be 2 inches above my elbow crease. And then we will come back and I will show you how to do the ribbing around the arm. And then I will show you how to do the ribbing around the bottom of the sweater. Although the ribbing around the arm is exactly the same as the ribbing around the bottom if you choose to do the ribbing around the bottom. So we may take a shortcut and I will show you the sleeve ribbing, and then you can decide whether you want to put it on the bottom of the sweater. And I won't actually show you the bottom of the sweater because it's going to be exactly the same as the ribbing around the sleeves. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. Is I'll finish this sleeve off, I will show you the ribbing on this sleeve, and then you can add it to the bottom or not add it to the bottom of the sweater. I am definitely adding it to the bottom of my sweater, both of them. But for time constraints, for all of us, I'll just show you the ribbing on the sleeve. I'll be back in just a few minutes when I get this sleeve done. Alright, so we put on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and that's all I needed. And it reaches exactly where I want it to reach on my arm. So like I said, it's not a very long sleeve. A couple inches. You can make this longer, you can make it shorter, you don't have to add a sleeve at all. But now we are going to move on, and I'm going to zoom you in so you can see. Don't mind my headphones, I'm jamming out. We are going to add the ribbing. So to add the ribbing, wherever we chained in, we connected right there, we can just move my headphones so I'm not hitting them. Chain 3 from where we connected right there. And in the top of all of the stitches, we're going to put a double crochet. So for every granny shell, you should have 3. Do not put anything in between the granny shells at this point. We are only working in the 3 double crochets. Okay, which 1 is the here, 2 is here, 3 is here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Just gonna do that across. You should not be increasing or decreasing anything at this point. We are just putting double crochets. This is also exactly what we're doing for the ribbing on the bottom. So I'm not going to show you ribbing on the bottom. I'm just going to show you this because it's the exact same thing we're doing. We are just going to put a double crochet in every single one of the double crochets of the previous row. So 3 per granny shell. 1, 2, and 3. This is what it should look like. I don't have my glasses on. I couldn't tell if that was blurry or not. Some days I need my glasses and some days I don't. I have really weird vision. Today I probably need them. And I don't know where I put them again. I think they're upstairs on my side table. I'm almost positive that's where I had them last. Because I take them off at night and I set them on my side table. So whatever we do on this sleeve, make sure you do on the other sleeve. Make sure that your numbers are the same. Make sure that you have the same amount of granny shells all the way around. Make sure that you have the same number of rows. And make sure you have the same number of stitches. The same thing goes for the bottom. Is like you're going to do this. Make sure that your stitch count adds up. You don't want to be increasing or decreasing on that. If you want your ribbing around the bottom of your shirt to go slightly inward, or if you want this to be a little bit tighter, go down a half a hook size. So this is a 6.5 millimeter, go down to a 6 millimeter. And then these stitches will be a little bit tighter. I'm not doing that because I don't want it to be tighter. You can do that, that is an option. But just this fits my arm like absolutely perfect. It hugs my arm without being snug. And that's exactly what I wanted. And if you don't want to do ribbing, you can just do a single crochet row here, a double crochet, half double, whatever you want. And then not do the next row, which is fine. I don't care. But I'm doing ribbing all the way around because I want it to match the neckline. Almost around. All right, put our last double crochet in. We are going to slip stitch into the chain 3 and then just chain 1 because we're going to do front post, back post. So we just need a chain 1 to pull us up just a little bit. And then front post, just like we did the neckline, front post double crochet, back post double crochet all the way around. And if you have an extra stitch on the end, remember how we did with the neckline, we added an extra stitch in on the regular part of the double crochet, you can do that. Just because your stitch count doesn't have to be perfect on every project you do. That's why I design the way I design, is like if you made a mistake and you're one stitch off, I know some people are like, I'm gonna frog this whole thing, like I'm so upset. You ain't gotta do that. Just fudge it. Nobody is gonna be up under your arm looking at your stitches. So that is what your sleeve cap will look like. It'll be front post, back post. A little bit of ribbing going on. Just do this all the way around. I'm only going to do one row because I don't want a super long sleeve, like I said. And this should reach me just at the point in my elbow that I want it to reach. And so I'm going to do just this row and call it a day. And after you're done with the ribbing, you can also add like a single crochet border around past this if you want. Just make it your own. Just make it your own design. I think I'm just going to end it at the ribbing. Although I might add a single crochet. I might, because the neck has the, you remember when we started the neckline, we did the foundationless single crochet. So I might add a single crochet row past this. I think that's what we're gonna do. I decided. So one more row after this. And then if you want ribbing on the bottom, repeat the ribbing on the bottom of your shirt as well. You do this exact thing around the bottom. I really enjoyed working with this puzzle cotton yarn. I've had it in stash for a while. I really liked it when it first came out because it basically is puzzle. And I just liked the look of it. And now that I've worked with it, I really like this yarn. I have enjoyed working with it. It has been a delight to work with. It's soft, it's squishy. It feels delightful. And you don't really know, like sometimes I can plan a project and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to use X yarn for X project, and I don't realize until I start making the project that I hate the yarn, and I'm like, you know what, I'm scrapping this whole project because I hate the yarn. And sometimes that happens. Not with this. I'm loving this yarn. I really like this colorway. I wish there was a little bit more of this turquoise. A little bit more of that in here. But I ain't mad at it. I think it's beautiful. And I think when I do the next sleeve, because I have some of this pink left over, but I also have some of the blue. I think I'm going to try to color control it a little bit so the sleeves match, but you don't have to do that at all. And I'm not even sure I'm going to, but I can. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to color control or not. I think I'm just going to go with it. Life is too short to worry about whether the sleeves match, especially when it's just short sleeve. I mean, I would probably work harder to match color if I was making this full-on sleeve, full dark, or full, not full dark, full length sleeve. But since it's just a short sleeve, I don't think I'm going to color control. But you can. You can try anyway. It's not going to be exact because of the way this yarn works, but. Alright, so because my last stitch here is a front post, and that first stitch is a front post, I'm going to put a double crochet in between, just so it looks right. And then slip stitch to join, chain one, and then I'm just going to do a single crochet row. That is the sleeve. I think it's cute. It's so cute. And I'm just going to put a single crochet in every stitch all the way around. And whatever you do to this sleeve, remember, make notes if you have to. That's why I always have a notebook on the side of me when I'm doing tutorials. I always make notes of what I did, how many stitches I did, so I can keep track so that I can make the sleeve exactly the same and not have like one bigger sleeve and one smaller sleeve. And then whatever you do to your sleeves, you can also do to the bottom of your sweater. You can mimic the ribbing and the single crochet row after that if you want. Now your single crochets, if you're going to do single crochets here, you want them to be a little bit on the loose side because single crochets do not have stretch in them, whereas double crochets will stretch. Single crochets will not. And you don't want this row to be extra tight around your arm. So keep your single crochets loose on this section right here, because otherwise it can cause tightness where you may not have had a problem before. And I'm saying this out loud so that I remember it, because I tend to make my single crochets really tight, and that has caused me problems in the past. Tutorials are funny to film because you're making them all out of order. You're filming the tutorial first, and then you have to film the intro after you're done and remember everything that you said or didn't say in the tutorial. And remember all the details you need to explain, and then you need to sometimes film an outro. It's just, tutorials are funky. They're extra work. This is so beautiful. I am really loving the way this turned out. If you guys make this, please show me. Send me pictures in my email. It's always linked below. Post it in the Facebook group. Post it to Instagram and @Cinnamon Stitches or #Cinnamon Stitches. I will see it either way. If you have a channel, make a post about it on your YouTube channel. I will come over and watch your video. I just really appreciate you guys showing me when you guys make something that I designed. I really like seeing that. And don't forget to @Cinnamon Stitches or #. Alright, and we're at the last stitch. We're going to slip stitch to join, and the sleeve is done. Now we get to go and make the second sleeve, and I'm going to do the same ribbing around the bottom. But that's it for this tutorial. That is the sleeve. Isn't that so cute? It's so cute. And Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me while we did this. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.